Good evening and welcome. I'm Jan Fortune-Wood from Simon Press, and this evening we're introducing a fantastic new novel. Sometimes things arrive on your desk as an editor and immediately you just can't put this thing down, and this was one of them. It's got a fantastic opening, which Mike's going to read for you this evening, but it sustains it the whole way through. It's one of those books that you just have to keep thinking, I'll just read the next bit, I'll just read the next bit, and then you find you're all the way at the end. And it's not a tiny book, so it really, really keeps you and it really grabs you. I'm going to let it speak for itself. It's been brilliant working with Mike on this book. We're very grateful to the Welsh Books Council for funding some of its publication, and very grateful to Academy for hosting us here this evening. So welcome, Mike Stephenss.
Well, it looks like great prose for a little clam. Maybe the opera singing put them off. I thought perhaps I'd start by singing an aria or two, just to clear the room. I think it was Trollope who was writing at his desk one evening, and his wife was sitting on the other side of the hearth. When I say Trollope, I mean Anthony, not Julia. And his wife was sitting on the other side of the hearth, and he suddenly sprang to his feet and said, "Good Lord, I didn't know he had a brother." Well, I felt a bit like that when I first heard the name Dai Dando. I didn't know very much about him. I knew that he was 25, thereabouts. He wasn't bad looking. He was from the Quaker estate in Pontypridd, which doesn't exist, by the way. And he was working as a junior accounts clerk in the Gwalior Building Society. It's okay, I've checked it for libel. I knew this, he was as different from me as it's possible to be. I had to keep on saying, especially to my wife, this is not autobiography, this is fiction. I made it all up. Dai's main interests are rugby, having a few bevies with the lads. And he's a likeable young man, not at all like me, and he would give his last Rolo to the old lady on the 24 bus into town. I knew that right from the start. But as it turned out, he's much more complex than that. For a start, although he's only got as many GCSEs as you can count on one hand, he reads a lot, which is always a saving grace in my mind, and he makes a point of learning at least 5 words a week. And he's picked up a lot from his father, who was a miner. He had been a miner anyway at the Lady Windsor colliery until that cowing bitch closed the pits down. And he's later a driver with the Shamrock buses in Ponty. And he learned a lot from his grandfather, at whose funeral they sang the Internationale. Dai is a Silurian. In fact, I nearly called the book The Silurian. He's one of the small, dark people. He keeps on reminding us about that. We are an unconquered people, we are. We were here before the Romans. We've always defended our own patch. So watch it, but for him, the supreme Silurian, eloquent, mercurial and fearless, is a Nairin Bevan. And Dai's middle name is Karaticus. Like his hero, he's very dubious, at the outset at least, about the Welsh language. He gets worked up about the growing use of bilingual signs, ambulance, ambulance, toilets, toiledai, that kind of thing. And he's also hostile towards people from North Wales, though he only knows one, his line manager, a man called Peredur Llwyd Roberts. who pronounces the letter Z as an S. He says magazine. There's nothing political about Dai, and he's never voted, though he has some pretty obnoxious things to say about the Tories and goes ballistic when the image of Margaret Thatcher is put up in the National Assembly, because it was she who made his father redundant. Now Dai's view of things, as we get into the novel, is challenged by the fact that he meets a young woman about his age called Larry Vaughan Jones. I haven't yet come across anybody of that name. If you know of anybody, let me know, will you please? She's a student from Aberystwyth, from a very comfortable Welsh-speaking home, Bandage, Defo, says Dai, up in leafy Rhadir. She calls at his grotty flat in Cardiff North while out canvassing for Plaid Cymru one evening. He doesn't take to her at first because she says everything twice, in Welsh and then in English, but he's soon smitten with her. In fact, it was when Dai opened the door to Larry that I suddenly saw Dai as a character of flesh and blood. She too is an attractive young woman, though he's baffled as to why she won't let him have her up on the garth one afternoon. His interest in her is more sexual than political, I must admit. But as he says, she's got an head on her, she have, and soon he's thinking about Cardiff as the capital of Wales. But Larry has problems which no one seems willing to talk about and which I'm not going to reveal tonight. Not that Dai is without problems of his own. One night he meets Fred Peregrine, an old bloke from Triallow in the Rhondda, who for Dai is the embodiment of what he calls the old radical Wales. Fred spends the night on Dai's sofa after missing the last bus up the valley. In the morning he's gone and Dai is interviewed by the police. The evening comes to its devastating climax when Dai, who has a retro thing about older women, bumps into Ros Watkins, a receptionist at the Gwalia, after which he has to take stock of the way he lives. It's a bleak view of the world, is Dai's. He makes fun of the Gwalia's advertising slogan that life is not a series of unrelated incidents. Oh, yes, it is, too bloody royal, he says. Life is a series of unrelated incidents. It's like that woman in the wheelchair in Notting Hill says, there's no meaning to it. The novel is set mainly in Cardiff North and Whitchurch and Queen Street, with excursions to the Rhondda, where Dai goes to play seven-a-side with a team from the Gwalia Building Society. It takes place over 12 days in the late summer of last year. Much of the story is told in straight narrative, but because I've tried to get into Dai's head, as it were, interior monologue or stream of consciousness, I don't know whether that's still a fashionable term, is also used, as well as dialogue between Dai and someone whose identity is never revealed, but who may or may not be the narrator.